How do you feel the traditions are keeping up with the fast pace of change that we're facing now on the planet?
Well, basically they're not. That the fundamentalists of all of the major religions are struggling to hold their position of hierarchy and the result is that we're having, basically the wars that we're having all over this planet have religious differences as one of the fundamental problems evoking the conflicts. And so from a standpoint of dogma and power dominance, religion is a major separating experience for people, and spirituality, which we all have in common, is being ignored. When we all get in touch with the spirituality, which is not about dogma, but about that we inherently all feel all over the world, that we have a soul, and that we are connected to each other and to divinity in some way that is profound and is difficult to explain because it basically is a mystical or inner experience. So when people gather together and have a sense of shared spirituality in silence often, then we connect. When we start to argue over my God is better than your God, or my God loves me better than your God, or your inferior God loves you less, or some mess, we have all the troubles we have. And basically religion begins to look like an extraordinarily dysfunctional family argument among brothers, mostly. And see, I think that it's up to women to bring the founding principle into culture, into consciousness. And that, I think, is the only way that we'll manage to get out of the squeeze we're in. Because we're in a transition zone. We'll either make it through it or we won't. And if we make it through, I really bet that it will be because women globally look after the principle of connectedness, to look after children and become involved to become involved, women have to become empowered.
Can you just say briefly when you refer to that transition zone that we're in, that we're going to make it through or not, what you're referring to when you say that?
Well, one, we've moved from nationalism to planetary consciousness, or that's what we are. We're now a global culture, and we find ourselves limited by our more provincial views coming into a global place. So how do we find what we have in common, or can we find what we have in common, or will we continue to struggle over our differences? That's a major transition.
What do you see as the value of an event like this ultimately?
The agenda that I personally have considerable faith in is the potential of there being at a Fifth Women's World Conference, women from all over the world connected in principle about the need for nurturing and sustaining the children and the planet. And now having the means through emails, internets, to support one another and nurture whatever movement is going on wherever it is happening. For example, the woman who was going to be stoned in Nigeria wasn't stoned because of the internet connections all over the world that sent reams of thousands of emails to the Nigerian government saying, we're watching, this is really not right to do. And somehow they found a way not to stone her to death, which is just one story, one person. But the internet potential, along with women who are in fact empowered for the first time historically, it's a major thing. If you look back in the bigger picture of history, it's only been in the late 20th century that women in the western part of the world, in the United States specifically, had equal access to education, resources, and really changed options in their lives and affected everything. Now, it's not a perfect world yet, it's not perfectly equal, but consider that there has never been a generation ever in the whole history of Western civilization where women in general had the opportunity for equality of education and opportunity and employment and things like that, and consider that there are 45 to 50 million American women who have been affected by the women's movement who are still here. Now, my specific positive attitude has to do with thinking we have about a 20-year window to change the world. And we personally have been affected by the change in our world that we live through. And now we have about 1 to 2 to 3 degrees of connection. When we come to something like this, we make more connections, personal connections. A group of women then make friends with women who are in many different countries who are in positions of influence. And so that connectedness, that interconnectedness, and the energy in which women will cross national boundaries because of not being involved in the politics so much as they are involved in the social issues.
Do you think the traditions are going to make it through this transition point, or do you think we'll probably end up with a whole new kind of tradition or new set of traditions? Do you think we need a new religion to sort of shake off the shackles of the old ways, or do you think they can adapt fast enough to meet this change?
Human beings have always had a spiritual or a reverence for the sacred built in. So I think it's in our genes. So humankind has, at its highest nature, I think, a sense of reverence for life. And life means the life of the animals, the planet, and each other. And I think we've lost it in our wars and things. Every religion has an essence that is mystical, that has to do with connection with divinity. Every religion has a sense of community. And then there is this whole complex of power that is also part of every religious experience, every religion. So there's a tension between the institution of the religion and the reason for the religion in the first place, which was awe, numinosity. Okay? How that numinosity can be realized as belonging to everyone, and each having a particular path that makes sense out of the experience, because that's what we try to do. We're a meaning-oriented species. And maybe someday we'll actually be Homo sapiens sapiens, which is our name, which sapiens being wisdom. I mean, the only way that we can get through the transition, which is a potential to destroy ourselves or evolve, is by living up to our name. Homo sapiens sapiens. Can we truly be wise? And see, I think wisdom and compassion always go together, that you can't have one without the other. And that behind wisdom and compassion, there is a spiritual connection, an interconnection. And regardless of wherever you are, whatever your education has been, whatever your religion has been, if you could just go to that level and realize that everyone on this planet has that level also, then there really is hope. And I think that for change to come about at this point, that it's up to women and men for whom the feminine principle is a conscious part of themselves to help bring it about.